Hi, everybody. It is Tuesday night, 7 o'clock Texas time, because it's all about Texas. Anyway, welcome to Kicking Back, our podcast number 29. And again, I'm going to say, I don't know if we're off by one or not. I'm not sure. I think there's a discrepancy. I'm going to have to go back and count, but we're going to say it's number 29 of our Kicking Back podcast, where I hope you learn something when you listen to these podcasts. I hope you get to know the bowlers and the coaches and the great people that we have on, and you learn just a little bit more about them. There's more to these people than just being a coach or a bowler or a mom or a dad. So it's more about just getting inside and seeing what really makes people tick. So what's going on this week? We have some upcoming events. Plano Super Bowl will be hosting a mixed doubles event. And in a couple of weeks, we have the Youth Open tournament that will be at USA Bowl. So please, youth bowlers, if you are within driving distance, come on out next weekend to USA Bowl and make sure to participate. Some great scholarship opportunities. December 18th, 19th, and 20th, we will be there. I would like to take this opportunity as we're rolling into the end of the year. Turbo, Rotogrip, Dexter, Logo Infusion. Thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do for bowling and all you do for Ballard's Bowling Academy and the Ballard family. We are grateful. I know Thanksgiving has passed and we are rolling into Christmas, but we are grateful. Thank you to Logo Infusion, who sent me 4 beautiful boxes this week of donations for Ballard versus the Big C, our official charity. So you will be seeing some great t-shirt opportunities moving forward into 2021. So check us out, ballardversusthebigc.org. You will be able to purchase them. So as we move on to our guest, we're going to go in a lot of different directions. So excited. I don't get to talk to this guest very often, but when I do, I always learn something. I remember watching her bowl at Weber International. So as you know, we start. What are some words that describe this guest? Now, she can't hold any of this against me because this is coming from people who know her. So it has nothing to do with me. Let's see. She is bright, determined, kind and talented, comical, caring, sarcastic. And one thing that I said, I believe she is the whole package. Please welcome Verity Crawley to the show this evening. Hi, Verity.
Hi, thanks for having me. Those are some words.
Those are some words. Hey, and you could probably guess some of the people that said some of them, but I did say whole package. So I'm going.
I did get a text message from one person saying, hey, CDB just messaged me.
I know. It's like, come on now, just give me the words. But I want to just expand on that even before we get into all the directions that we want to go. I do think you're the whole package. So I talk about this often. There are many people that throw the ball very well. Actually, it's just beautiful. Your poetry in motion. But, and I'm going to say this, but this does not pertain to you, but as we've seen, and we see out of a lot of our youth bowlers, you can throw the ball great. That doesn't mean you're going to be a great bowler. That doesn't mean you're going to do great things, right? It's what you do with that talent. And I guess that's why I say you're the whole package. You are a national winner with Weber International. We just talked about it. In 2013 and 14, NAIA. But the ITC, you won in 2016. Go Warriors. Home Center, Kegel Training Center. Okay. Yep. You can't, I mean, unbelievable. All the tools.
Yeah, you can't beat it.
No. And all the knowledge that you have in that one that one, I want to say, box of an office, right? Or training. Yes. So all of that was portrayed into your collegiate career. And then, of course, you are now a PWBA member. So I want to start with, tell us a little bit about that experience. How did you choose Weber, or did Weber choose you, number one? And tell us a little bit about having that Kegel training center at your disposal.
Yeah, it was definitely, for me, I think it was more of I fell into Weber more than anything. It wasn't something that I'd really necessarily dreamed of. I knew that I always wanted to bowl, but I didn't have my sight set on going to America to bowl in college. You know, I'd actually planned to go to university in England, but again, I wasn't set on that. I chose a degree that I was far from excited about, and I back home it's quite difficult to get into universities, and you have to go through different interviews and everything. And I went to, maybe there's a limit of the amount that you can apply for, and out of all of the ones, I think I applied for 4 and only one of them accepted me. So it was kind of like I don't really want to go there, but they're the only place that will have me for the major that I decided. And it all worked out in the end, because I came to the US. But the way it happened was an international coach, Sid Allen. A lot of people will probably know that name.
Yes.
I have worked with him in England, and we stayed in contact. It was maybe 2008 when I worked with him. So I was very young at the time. And I bowled a European Youth Championships for Team England, and I bowled really well. And from there, I had some interest from collegiate coaches in the US. And there were schools that, you know, I was like, if I'm going to go to the US, I don't really want to go somewhere that's cold. And for some reason, that was my thing. I was like, I don't really want to go to Nebraska. It's going to be freezing, you know. And there was like Arkansas and just some other areas that I was like, I'm okay. And then Sid messaged me saying, hey, have you looked into Weber? And I was like, no. I kind of knew of it because I knew about Kegel, but I didn't really know a whole lot about the program, in all fairness. He sent my videos to the head coach, Del Warren, and it kind of skyrocketed from there. The day that I showed up at the Kegel Training Center was the first time I met or had even spoken to Randy, who was the head's women's coach. So I don't even think he was expecting me to show up, didn't know who I was. It all just kind of happened. You know, I had that conversation with Del at the end of April, and I moved to the US in the August. So it was all very quick turnaround. I'm extremely happy the way that things worked out, for sure. And I was very lucky to have the opportunity to bowl at Kegel for 4 years. I think having the access to all of the tools and resources that they have is phenomenal. And obviously, having been away from Kegel and being coached at a different university and kind of seeing the differences in terms of what's available, I would say that the experience is definitely more of what you make it. Like, I could have gone to Kegel for 4 years and not really developed, because if I didn't really ask questions or wasn't curious or didn't put in the work, then, you know, you're just kind of going to float along, get your degree and leave. But for me, I was there to bowl. I was obviously so far away from home that for me, I wanted to take advantage of what was in front of me.
That's a unique story, because there are a lot of kids who really enter their senior year and they're not really sure. They want to go to college, but they don't really know what they want to study. I mean, that's number one. Number two, some of them may want to go to college to be a part of a team and have that college experience with the team, but they don't want to be a pro bowler. And that's okay too. So really what you described is having a little bit of everything, which I think is a unique and fantastic opportunity. And what we've also seen is a lot of the college coaches throughout the country have become better just from learning from each other and going for more training.
Definitely. I mean, I think that being a college coach and actually being involved in that, you learn so much because you're watching, you know, day in and day out. But at the same time, as an athlete, I didn't necessarily know that I was going to become professional. You know, I didn't know that was a thing back home in England. Right. Like, I grew up all around bowling, but I was never one to watch a lot of bowling on TV because we didn't have as much access to it. It was a little bit more difficult to know about. So I didn't really watch a whole lot of it. I didn't know a whole lot about the professional side of things. And it wasn't until I came to the US that I started to have a little bit more of a understanding. And again, that's probably my fault for not watching the YouTube videos or really wanting to. I just wanted to bowl. You know, that was all I cared about. And I came to the US and I kind of had that realization of, okay, I got a bit more confidence in myself to have a thought if I can actually take this somewhere. And I had a path as to where I could take it.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned coaching. You did coach a little bit with SCAD, correct? With Katie Thornton, who I believe you bowled with, correct?
Yes.
Katie.
Yeah, we bowled together for a year, and she was then the assistant coach of the Weber program for a year. I also lived with her whilst I was in college. And then she obviously went on to start the SCAD bowling program. She did that. She ran that for herself by a year, which was obviously really difficult because she had both a men's and a women's team, but just literally her. So, you know, it was kind of difficult to spread herself between everyone and being able to take both the men and the women to events. And it just worked out that I started working as her assistant coach, and it was great.
Well, I've talked to Shannon Plahowski about this. What do you see as the difference of throwing the bowling ball and being their coach? So when you're, I want to know the difference of how you feel.
It's so much more stressful to stand behind them and watch them throw the bowling ball, like without a doubt. And I don't think you will ever grasp that concept unless you're doing it, because obviously as a bowler, I'm like, well, no, it's harder because I have to bowling ball. But obviously as a coach, and especially at the collegiate level where you are a little bit more hands-on with the players and you do tend to help them a little bit more, obviously you always question the decisions that you make. So one, you have that in your mind of, okay, well, they're going to change to this ball, maybe it's not right. So then you kind of have that stress that it's just you made the wrong decision. And then obviously it's just the fact of watching them, and there's so much tension there every shot, and you're literally watching every single shot. Like, you know, when you're a collegiate player that you're going to miss some shots every now and then. Like, you don't watch every single shot that your teammates throw as much as you probably should. Whereas when you're a coach, like, you have to have your eyes on the lens all the time.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I do think it's more stressful to watch. I do, because you're not really in control. You know, when you're throwing the ball, you're in control. But when you're watching, and it's not even only just watching. I mean, you are watching their ball motion. How are their reactions? Are they upset? Are they happy? Do you have to talk them off a cliff? You're a psychologist, you're a bowling coach, right? You're a little bit of a mom. I think coaching is more difficult, and especially now because there's so much access to it. And again, it's becoming a college coach is such a transformation for some people, and we need more college coaches. But it's interesting for you to say that it is. It's so much more stressful. Well,
I was just going to say that it's tough as well, because you have the other side of things that as a player don't cross your mind, in terms of, okay, you have to drive them to the bowling center. All of the travels have to be arranged. Like, the whole work behind how a tournament happens and how those players get to compete is all on the coach as well.
Right.
So you have that aspect, which is even more stressful. Like, well, how are we going to get this group of 25 people to eat all at the same time, and they're screaming at us that they're hungry, and just there's so many more aspects that I think that I definitely took for granted when I was an athlete, and I definitely wasn't thankful enough for the coaches that I had and literally all that they do, because it's, you even think about starting the day at 6 a.m. and just the schedule that the coaches have to go through. Like, yes, I understand that as the athlete you're bowling, but the coaches are up for 2 hours earlier. They go to bed 2 hours later, and they don't get to sleep on the bus rides if they're driving.
Right, exactly. Now, if you had all of that experience now, so, if you were talking to yourself now when you were just going to Weber, what would you tell your younger self? Now that you've coached, now that you've watched kids throwing the ball, at the college level, what would you tell yourself going into your first year at college?
I feel like I would have so many things. Like I would literally have to write a letter to myself of do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, because there's so many more things that I feel like I wish I'd even learned or asked more questions about back then that I didn't, that I'm now learning now, that I'm like, well, why didn't I learn that 4 or 5 years
Yep.
ago? And there's that aspect of things in terms of the bowling and let's say ball motion. But then
Yep.
there's also the thankful aspect to where I wish that I'd really been a little bit more appreciative of my coaches.
Yep. I think that is so, you hear that a lot because you're in the moment. These kids are in the moment. So they don't see the other side of it. And we've all been there in different parts of our life. So yes, being thankful, we just have to remind them every now and then. But I'm so glad you said that. So how do you feel your experience at Kegel prepared you to become a PWBA member?
I think it just gave me the knowledge, or more knowledge, I should say, because
Okay.
I'm still continuing to learn. Like I would say that battle is never going to end. There's always going to be something new to learn. But I think it just opened my eyes more to what I need to learn, and what's really out there to learn more than anything. Because it's very easy to just go and bowl 3 games and okay, I did this, and not really understand it. But I think being at Kegel gave me that, I don't know, the mindset that there's so much more, whether it's conditioners or how properly
Right.
understanding a lane pattern sheet. Like that aspect, the more technical aspect, is definitely something that I have considered a lot more now that I've been there for so long.
That's interesting you say that too, because there are so many things you don't think about while you're at college or while you're training, because you're going to see so much more. You're in the zone of just, I want to be a better bowler.
Right.
That's really, I want to be a better bowler.
And even though you want to be a better bowler in that moment, you also just kind of feel like, well, my coach is going to tell me what to do and I'm just going to hang out with my teammates, and it is what it is. Like obviously the coaches are phenomenal, but they can only teach us so much too without
Right.
us really being curious and asking more questions.
Right.
So I think that's kind of another aspect of it too, is again, like I said, you're going to get out of it what you put into it. And yes, I feel like I developed a whole lot as a player whilst I was in college, but now looking back on it, I wish I'd, delved more into drilling bowling balls. That was something that I learned after I graduated, whereas maybe if I could have learned that earlier on in my collegiate career, it would have, not that it would have become easier, but I would have had even more knowledge then, which may have affected decisions that I made on the lanes or off the lanes.
Right. I do agree with that. I never learned to drill bowling balls. I'm bad at numbers, number one, and I'm still just horrific. So I find it tedious and time consuming, and I have no patience. But I was fortunate enough to work with enough people where I knew the motion I wanted or what I was looking for, and then I would just hand that ball over to the expert. But moving on, and I am going to ask this, and I truly do not mean this in a negative way, but I want to talk about it. You've been on tour for 3 years, 2017, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So when I look at the list of bowlers out there,
yep,
and I admit this, I look at your name and I say, how does she not have a title? Right? Because of how I see you and I perceive you, and I know how hard you work. So and that's why I'm saying I want this to be a very positive conversation, because I know my daughter will listen and I want her to learn from this. So again, I call you the complete package. You have had great collegiate training. You have worked with good mental coaches, Dr. Dean being one of them. You've had a team of support, and you are on a pro staff, obviously, Storm Pro staff. Just tell us a little bit about how you feel where you are right now, okay, in your first 3 years, and what you see yourself doing moving forward. I mean, you've had 4 runner-up, 4, correct? I'm right on that, right? Okay,
you're right.
4 runner-up finishes. And before you answer, I want to say something that I hope you will remember as you move forward with your career. Marshall Holman, one of the greatest bowlers of all time, I believe had more second place finishes than titles. I had a streak of 20 TV shows without a win, and some of them were second place finishes. So I don't want to make light of it because I think it's a positive thing.
No, and that's.
I want you to, and I really want to know how you feel about it because I see it as so much of a positive. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think if you'd have asked me 2 years ago, my answer would have been completely different than it is now. I think 2 years ago I was, and again, I think I'd had 2 runner-up finishes at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I had 2 in my first season.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'd have asked me after that first season, I would have just said, I don't know what I would have said. I don't want to think about what I would have said because It would not have been positive. But where I am right now, I think that I'm so much better by having those finishes. And as much as I look back on it and believe that I could have won, I think the biggest thing is I genuinely, in those moments, didn't believe that I could have won. And you say, okay, that I had the whole package, but I think up until this point, I didn't truly have the whole package because I didn't believe in myself. So yes, other people believed in me, and I go through all of this training, throw the ball great, and obviously work on my mental game. But the biggest thing was that I didn't have that belief in myself that I could win.
Interesting.
I'd obviously won at a European level for Team England, and I'd won things here and there, but throughout my youth career, I had a lot of ups and downs, and I had definitely a lot more losses than I had wins. And I never really ever got that belief that I could win. I didn't ever feel like it was like me to win. I felt like I could get to maybe close to the top range and then, well, okay, that's it, and I kind of felt like I'm good for qualifying, and then Verity's gone. And it almost at some point,
Verity's gone.
But at some
point, where'd you go?
Exactly. But even before I became pro, it was a joke because I led qualifying at Queen's in 2015. I shot 300, and that was the first time outside of the collegiate season that I was seen. But then I lost my first 2 matches, and it was kind of like Verity's good for qualifying. And I got that stuck in my head, I think, a little bit too much. And I just didn't necessarily have that belief. And I obviously got to those TV shows really thinking that I could win. And I would say for the majority of them, I put up a very good fight. I'm happy with how I performed on TV for sure. Mm-hmm. But I think I just wasn't ready. And I think that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is now I feel like I'm ready. Now I feel like I could stand there with the trophy and it belongs to me. Like, even though I felt like I'd put in all of the work up until that point, I don't think I truly believed that I was ready to stand there and hold that trophy. And I think that now, being where I am, I think it's only going to propel me to do even better. And I think it propelled me to work even harder. Those losses are always...
Okay.
Oh, you lost me?
Oh, no, we're good now. You're back.
Those losses obviously are really hard in the moment, but they always make you want to work harder afterwards because you want to get better. So in that aspect, I'm happy that they happened, and it's just a part of my journey. So I'm excited to see where things go from here.
I think that was an excellent answer, and I will make sure that my daughter listens to that. Number one, the Queens is a difficult event.
Yeah.
It's one of the hardest tournaments to win, in my opinion. It's luck of the draw. Who you get, what pair you're on. I mean, you bowl a match and you could shoot 720 and lose, and the match next to you is 580 to 6-0. I mean, it just happens that way. But I find it interesting that you, with the way you are conditioned and the way you throw it, I find it very interesting that you had the thoughts in your head that you didn't you didn't deserve to win, or you didn't belong, or the trophy didn't belong to me. I guess I come from the other side of the coin that when you walk in the building, the trophy is yours.
And I never necessarily had that mindset as much as I should. I felt like everyone felt like everyone else had that mindset for me. And ever since a young age, everyone always told me, like, Verity, you throw the ball so good. And now I see that. I never used to, maybe up until a few years ago, I never really saw that. But everyone used to be like, oh yeah, you throw it really good. You throw it really good. Your time's coming. And I got so fed up of hearing, like, you just have to be patient. Your time is coming. And that used to infuriate me. And now it's fine. Like, now I don't mind. But it's just one of those things.
But but again, that is such a great piece of advice. And I am so going to play that for our youth bowlers. Again, we go back to the point of, you can throw it great. It doesn't really mean you're going to win. You may get there, but you may not win. There's so many other aspects. And by the way, when you're on TV and you're leading a tournament, sometimes luck has to be on your side. Ballard always said that to me. Sometimes you create your own luck. You know, hey, you shoot 230 and somebody shoots 260. I mean, really? Did you bowl ban? Not really. So what a great answer. And you took it in such a different direction. I thank you for that. Even I mean, no belief in that you could win. I mean, that's crazy in my eyes. Just knowing what training you had, where you came from. And, you know, I probably was one of those people that first saw you bowl and go, I mean, oh my God, this girl's just going to kill it, which you are going to kill it, by the way. So, I'll pump you up. No problem. I'll pump you up.
Thanks. Makes me feel good. But no, and I think along with that, it does kind of go along with that whole package. Like, yes, I threw the bowling ball good, but I never, up until I started on tour, I didn't necessarily have that concept of where my bowling ball is going. So as I was a junior bowler, coaches used to tell me, oh, you throw the bowling ball so good. But at this point, and I would practice more than anyone else, but I'm getting beat by everyone who just shows up the day before the event. And it used to like infuriate me. And I kept working, but I think I worked so hard on my physical game that I pushed some of the aspects aside. So I didn't necessarily learn the ball motion as well as I should have. I didn't learn to control my hand as much as I should have. And those were the things that started to hurt me more in the events than how I throw the bowling ball. I started to get too particular about how I was throwing the bowling ball, when in the end, it doesn't matter. Like, look around at all of the pros. They all throw it different. Of course, they're going to have certain game that are very similar, whether it's the flat spot or whatever it is. There's certain things that match up between the certain professionals, but I was looking or always searching for this perfect feel with bowling and to throw it this perfect way, which, don't get me wrong, now I throw the bowling ball very good, and I think all of that work has kind of paid off. But now I feel like I'm behind a step with, let's say, ball motion, and I'm trying to figure out how that matches to me more than anything, and how I can still be myself versus trying to be somebody else.
Another great answer. I mean, that is so, I don't think you're a step behind, but I think you should have a little bit more confidence in yourself. I think you probably know more and see more than you think. You may not get the desired result, but I think you see and you probably feel more than you think. Also, another great point. Dell and I talk about this all the time because I was a victim of it. You should not have to throw the ball perfect. No one does. And anybody who really says they do, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I think there are people that repeat. I was a repeater, but I'm going to tell you, there are times I won tournaments and I know I missed a little left and I missed a little right. You got around it. And you know what? It just happened. You're not supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be doing the right thing. Right? You're just supposed to be doing the right thing. And ball motion helps, and it loosens you up, and you gain confidence. Which leads me to my next question. You bowl in Florida. You have some fantastic bowlers down there. You bowl a lot with JJ, I love him, John, just love him. I think you've competed in tournaments that Walter Ray Williams has bowled in, whatever it be. I always felt that something I did before I was going out on tour, when I competed on the old tour, was I bowled as many matches and I bowled as many King of the Hills and whatever it be against men, didn't matter. And it really prepared me for when I got out on tour. You have been killing it down there in Florida. So tell us a little bit about how that's changed your confidence And, you know, what changed? Is this something new that you've decided to do, or have you always done that while you were in Florida?
I think now I've just had more time to be able to do it. Obviously,
Okay.
normally with coaching, a lot of the weekends are taken away from competing.
Right.
So when I was coaching, I would try and compete as much as I could when I was away. But you have to think 13 plus weekends were taken from those collegiate events.
Right.
And I every now and then going into tour in April, right? I'd just come off being at sectionals, being at NAIAs, being at ITCs, and I was always like, oh, I wish I had more events to compete in. So it was kind of one of the goals I set to myself, was to try and bowl as much as I can. Obviously, with the pandemic and coaching not happening, well, that kind of fell in my favor. And there has been so much to bowl locally in Florida, and I'm just really trying to use it to better myself. And I think when we heard about the tour being originally, it was going to be postponed, so I wanted to be as ready as I could for when they were going to announce. Like, I didn't know, maybe they were going to announce tour starting in 2 weeks. Like, I wanted to be ready. I wanted
Right.
I wanted to have some form of competitive experience, so I started bowling as much as I could. I was very lucky to be in Florida, where lots of things were open and bowling centers were kind of getting back to normal. They didn't have as many leagues, so they were actually running more sweepers during the week. So I kind of started to take advantage of that, with the hope that, okay, PWBA Tour is coming and I'm going to be ready. Obviously, then they cancelled it, and I was still like, okay, well, I lost out on bowling the PWBA Tour. Let's try and bowl absolutely everything I can locally. And it just kind of skyrocketed from there. I had, the option was there to bowl. So it was like, I'd be silly not to. Like,
Right.
I could go practice, or I could go compete. A lot of the sweepers are, they're very cheap entry fees, but I just feel like you learn so much more from those events than you do in practice. And I think I've started to realize that a lot more the more I've been bowling in them. Like, obviously bowling at Kegel is such a pristine environment, and the lanes are on the newer side. Whereas when I go out and compete on tour, I'm bowling in older bowling centers that, have a lot more friction, that have leagues that, burn up the track. So I needed to bowl more in those environments. But if I just go and practice in one of those centers, you don't get the same breakdown. You don't get to experience the lanes in the same way than you do when you're in a competition. So for me, I think that's what's kind of helped me the most the last, couple of months. Is one, I'm bowling with the guys, which is a whole different story. Obviously, it's very different bowling with the guys than it is bowling with the women, but it just allows me to see the breakdown a little bit more. And obviously, you see the lanes transition in a different way, but also a little bit more because of how they play the lanes. And obviously, I was new to Storm at the beginning of this year, so learning their equipment is obviously a huge thing to do. And I think being able to do that in competition has benefited me a ridiculous amount too. And I think I understand my equipment now probably more than I ever have, just because I'm out there so much more on the lanes using it and having to make those decisions by myself. I've been very fortunate to travel a lot with JJ.
And she froze up. Yeah, good.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to be able to travel with JJ and compete, and I've really tried to take advantage of his knowledge, and we practice together at least once a week, actually in a different testing building that Kegel has with different lane surfaces. And we bowl on different patterns just to get more experience and to learn from him and kind of pick his brain. And obviously everyone sees ball motion a different way, and obviously we throw the bowling ball differently, so our moves are going to be different. But it's just nice to be able to talk to someone, and I'm kind of using that curiosity that I felt like I needed more in college now, to try and learn and develop a little bit more.
I think that is fantastic. I don't think you can bowl enough competitive stuff before you go out on tour. I know Dell beat that into my head when I bowled. It was, Thursday nights after league, we bowled pot games or King of the Hill. You're there till 3:00 in the morning. And because your competitive games on your hand are so different. You swell up, your mind races 100 miles an hour, and you just can't practice enough to match competition games.
No, and I feel like even as a collegiate coach, we were always trying to find ways to, match the collegiate tournament environment to practice. And there's just not a way. And it's the same for individual bowling. Like, the only thing you can do is go out there and compete. And there is no reason right now for me not to be competing. Like, obviously people might use COVID as kind of a reason not to compete. And if they don't feel safe, that's completely understandable. But for me, I'm wearing a mask and keeping distance, where you can, just to stay safe. But I just think that I have a huge opportunity in front of me. And I think it has kind of driven my confidence a little bit more because I have won. So I have won, and I've done it a lot more consistently. And I now, when I walk in the building, I believe that I should win. And I believe that I actually have the ability to beat the men. I know that I can compete against Walter and JJ and beat them. So I wholeheartedly believe that. Whereas a couple of years ago, I knew that I could be up there, but it was very rocky, up and down. Whereas now I understand that I can be there, and I think I grind it out a little bit more than I might have previously, even if I was struggling, just because I know that I can get there and I should be at the top.
I love that you said you can grind it out. That's my biggest thing with the kids lately, because I was always a grinder. So I beat that into their head, and I'm so thrilled that you said that. And by the way, yes, there is a seat for you at the table. You shall not forget that. And if you do, just call me or text me. I'll remind you. Which leads me, let's talk about the table you share with others when you're on tour. I mean, we're already 37 minutes in, and I'm just getting to one of my last questions. Daria Payok and Diana Zavyalova. Yes. So tell us about your rooming situation, and again, we're going to go in a direction because I did this with Diana. So you have two very competitive roommates in Daria and Diana. Both have won. So how does that work as roommates, friends, and competitors?
I think as roommates, regardless of who's won, who hasn't won, it doesn't matter. We're just roommates with one another. And we kind of have that relationship to where you don't have to set these boundaries in terms of, okay, well, you bowled good today and we're not going to talk to you, or this or that. We just kind of go with the flow, and we just know what to do. Like, if someone bowled very good, you're happy for them. If someone bowled very bad, okay, maybe let's talk about what we saw on the lanes and what we did if we bowled good, and then give them their space, let them take whatever they need in order to kind of get back onto it. And it's funny because we obviously bowled at Weber International together, but we weren't friends in college. Daria and I started the program at the same time. We were roommates for about 2 weeks in college. We show up and I'm like, oh, I'm in this room. She's like, oh, but I'm in that room too. Oh, okay, I guess we're rooming together. And she lasted 2 weeks with me, and then she moved out. So that's how our relationship started. But genuinely, we didn't really hang out a lot in college. We all had our separate friendship groups. We weren't even really in the same friendship group. We just competed together on the lanes. And then once Daria and I got a little bit closer towards our senior year, and we obviously won a national championship together. From there, we both actually stayed in Lake Wales for a year to work with certain visas. And we started to travel a little bit more together and started to definitely talk a lot more and became a little bit closer. And it got to the time of deciding to go on tour, and it just kind of happened. We decided to all room together, and we've obviously done it ever since. And I just think that we work very well together as a trio. We mesh together. We understand one another. Yes, we probably annoy each other too, but that's going to happen with everything. But we understand, and we know what annoys each other, I suppose.
That is awesome. Look, who doesn't annoy? I mean, every roommate, even husband and wife, right, Del? I annoy you. Give me the high five. I think that's great, because here's how I think about rooming situations. Your friends are your friends. They know you from the bottom up. I have been truly blessed with such a great group of friends who knew me as Carolyn Doran, and I was just starting out on tour, and we're still the best of friends. So true friends stick by you no matter what. Being competitors in the same sport, it's tough. There are tough moments, but it's fantastic that you You kind of just find your way through that. You support each other. You know that all of you are awesome. I mean, that is one high room of rev rates. That's what I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you the room of rev rates.
Room of rev rates.
Yeah,
I think in the end, in the end, we know that we're all competitive, right? And we know that each week, each one of us wants to win. But you kind of have that realization of, okay, well, we're going to compete. If we can make it to the TV show all together, then in the end, that's the end goal. And we have done that once. And we've all competed against each other. And obviously on the lanes, you kind of forget that you're friends, and you're competing against the lane. You're not even competing against the person. So in that aspect, it doesn't really even matter. But you then obviously, I competed against Daria and lost, and she won the title. And the same thing with Daria and Diana. So, but in the end, we're obviously going to support each other after that.
That's fantastic. That says a lot about the three of you, to be honest with you. Okay, so as we wrap it up, this is an easy question, quick question. If you weren't a professional bowler, what would you be?
That's actually not a very easy question for me. I hate that question.
Oh,
because
no.
I don't know.
You really? Oh, then that's fine. That's your answer. I don't know. That's okay.
No idea. If I hadn't have continued bowling, I would probably have stuck with gymnastics or swimming. But I don't really see myself taking that any further. And in terms of work-wise, no idea, because all I've ever wanted to do is bowl.
Okay. I love that answer. You're true to yourself. I think that's fantastic. That is. Dell's pointing to himself. That is all Dell ever knew. I had other plans. I wanted to be a radio disc jockey. Now I think I'm going to become a talk show host. What do you think? I think so.
Do it. I like it.
I think so.
Good question. So. You've got a good voice for it too.
Oh, do I? Yeah. Well, I can talk. That's the problem. Verity, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show with us tonight. You were fantastic. You are. Again, I know I say this, and Del always says, you have your favorites. I mean, I just saw you at Kegel, and you are the whole package. You are going to do great things. You are going to influence the sport, and always remember that you are influencing someone younger than you. And that probably is the most important. And you are, because my daughter thinks you rock. So I want to thank you for being a great role model. You are the future of our sport, and I look forward to congratulating you on your first victory.
I hope that you get to commentate.
Oh, is that because you like what I say about you, or?
Yeah, I just like how you analyze, the bowling and all of that. Plus, that would mean that there's a chance you would have bowled the event.
Oh,
so that would also be great.
Well, Verity, I am going to be honest with you. I was running late tonight because I was practicing.
Oh,
so yeah.
So does that mean you're bowling in January?
Don't get excited. But yes, I am bowling in January. But my career is definitely coming to an end. But I have always stuck by this. I have always been a workhorse, and I am not going to do something if I am not going to work at it. So I still enjoy practicing, but it does, I just have to make sure that I commit my time to it, and I have. Good. So I look forward to seeing you in January. Oh, thank you. But have a great holiday.
Thank you. You too.
Are you going to go home?
Me. Are you? That's a bit up in the air at the moment. Not sure.
Okay.
Visa issues and life's kind of got in the way, but we'll see. But thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys doing this and everything that you could do for bowling.
Yes, and please tell my two favorites, Randy and Dell, and Dawn, 3, I said hello.
Okay. Well, hopefully they're going to go watch this.
Oh, that's right. They should be. That is true. But yes, take care and have a great holiday.
Thank you.
You bet. So, Verity Crawley, I love her, right? Dell's giving me the high five sign because Verity was always on my list of favorites. But so many things I learned. You think you know everything, and you meet all these kids when they're in, college, and you look to see what they do in the future. I mean, you get out what you put into something, right? These are the things that I take away from some of these podcasts that we do. But it's so important for our younger generation to know these things. It's not expected You can't expect it. You get what you put in. She didn't believe she could win. Can you imagine that? So take a look at yourself when you're out there and putting everything into your game and you say to yourself, but I throw it so good. But that doesn't mean you're going to win. There are other things that add to the package. And you know what? She didn't like it being told to her, but I don't know. Maybe the time will come. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit for those great things in life. It doesn't mean it's any easier, but sometimes the waiting is the most enjoyable part. We just don't know it at the time. I didn't like making TV shows 20 times in a row and not winning, but boy, the lessons I learned. So, to all of my true friends out there, this is how we're going to end it. To all of my true friends out there, and you know who you are. To all those people who knew me as Carolyn Doran before I had any titles, before I won any college tournaments, I'm thankful for you because you are the people that stuck by me through thick and thin. You are still there with me today. And that's how we're going to end today's podcast. Thank your friends who stick by you through thick and thin, whether you're pursuing your career on the lanes or off the lanes. Make sure you thank your friends. And more importantly, if you are a bowler out there, if you're a gymnast, tennis coach, I don't care who you are, thank your coaches. They are the people that put in just as much time as you. They put it in a different way. And you know what? You wouldn't be where you are if it wasn't for the people behind the scenes. Thanks for joining me this Tuesday. I love every coach out there. Thank you to all my coaches. And I think I may even mention all of them next week. But thank you again for joining me. Again, make sure to thank everybody. Check out Ballard's Bowling Academy on Facebook. And please like our page and share our podcasts. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you next Tuesday, where we will be live, we hope. But I'm going to plug it, Del. We will be live from City View Lanes. Diana will be with us. EJ Ninichka, our Pro Shop guy, will be with us. Some of our youth bowlers, and we're going to do something really cool. So I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. Have a great week.